My father, who is 98 years old, is a master plumber. He started his journey as an apprentice when he was 19 years old, fresh out of the Navy. And he came to Aiken, South Carolina, and apprenticed himself to Mr. Wallace Bradley, who owned a plumbing shop there in town and had several other employees. And Mr. Bradley took my dad on as an apprentice plumber. And he worked hard in that young life at 19 years old. He got married to my mom when he was 19, amazing to me. He learned the plumbing and the heating business as well, particularly the intricacies of hot water boiler systems, of which we have one in this building. Which, Trey, is why I keep pestering you about things all the time. He went to Columbia, South Carolina a few years later and took his master's plumber's license, which he passed on the first time, a rarity in those days. It took several years for that whole process to take place and come together. There was a lot for him to do as he moved from being a farm boy in Wagner, South Carolina, to learn, but he was all in on that journey. When the Clemson Tigers won the college football national championship a few years ago, I was reading newspapers and articles in Sports Illustrated and ESPN, and it was amazing to me that people gave praise to the team and great kudos to the coaching staff for all they did in the lives of those kids that year as they all came together that year and they put together a winning season. But what they didn't know was that the coaches and the staff have been planning for that day since the first day they walked on campus, many of them 6, 7, 8 years prior. They looked ahead and said, that's our goal, that's our vision, that's what we want. They were willing to put in the preparation and the sweat and even, I think, one losing season in the midst of all of that to build a championship team. That attitude is part of what Dabo Swinney's copyrighted phrase, all in, is built around, I think. If I'm not here on Wednesday, I'm off tomorrow and Tuesday. If I'm not here on Wednesday, somebody come and get me out of jail because that's a copyrighted phrase. If he's listening, I apologize. Sometimes in a sermon I've been known to poke fun at what I call how-to sermons. How to have a happy marriage, how to raise godly children, how to be successful at work, how to pray. You get the point in all of that. I don't know any moment in Jesus' ministry at all when he turned to his disciples and said, believe in these 6 things about me and you will have a good life. What I read of Jesus is that he turned to his disciples and those disciples to be, and he said, follow me, and I will make you fishers of all people. I will make you out there in the world and be able to catch people. It's not a mystery, really. It's not a big secret which only a few are privy of. Plumbing was not a mystery for my father. It was hard work, and he put in long hours. He worked for a master plumber who taught him, who let him make mistakes, and who learned from them at the time. He was a master plumber who counseled my dad like a father because his own father had been absent for most of his life. Jesus doesn't demand that we hold to a dozen theological truths and walk around with a neon sign over our head that says, I'm saved, ask me how. He simply asks us, as he asked Peter, as he asked Nathaniel and James and John, to simply follow him, to cast our new nets out for new catches in the world, to do what he did, to do what he does. My father was a plumber the very first day he started his apprenticeship, but he didn't become a master plumber until he sat with and worked with another master. And that time in between was his training ground. Ministers are disciples before we are ever ordained. Every now and then, someone is called from the office cubicle or the production line to the pulpit. But more often than not, you're called to stay in that cubicle or the production line, or sitting with the child by a bed as he is sick, or picking up the grandkids from school. You're called to be in those places and to live your life like Jesus. A number of years ago, I was on the Presbyterian Examinations Commission. It's a fancy word for a group of people that get together and hear candidates who are hoping to come into this presbytery as either ministers already or those who are seeking ordination and having been called to a congregation in this presbytery. It was very interesting. We never turned anybody down from that. We always approved everybody that came to us, although there was one individual that we did suggest needed to go back and study for about 6 more months, and then could come back and we would examine him again, which he did. We asked some hard questions of our candidates in those meetings that we had with them. We had asked some hard questions about their sense of call. And the reason we did that was because I believe that we take some very good elders and members of congregations out of churches, members and elders who have great ministries in the work that they're doing in local congregations, and we make mediocre pastors out of them. Maybe their call was to be the best engineer possible. Maybe their call was to be the best stay-at-home mom possible, or be the best accountant possible, or work in their local congregation, living and growing and ministering like Jesus. Following Jesus isn't something that we add on to our life. It is our way of life. We don't need to bring one more thing into our lives to clog up our already too busy and too stressed out lives. But I wonder if that's not why people aren't engaged in the church much anymore as we used to be. Church attendance over the last 20 to 30 years has been declining. This is one of the few churches where that is not true, where your membership is held steady for a while now, for which I am grateful. Life happens, and I get that. I understand that. If your faith is only one more thing that you have to add to your life's work that you do, then I understand why it might not be the most important thing for you to come to worship or be engaged in church in some other way, even out there in the world. I understand why the commitment is down. I do get that. By the way, the average engagement in worship today is once every 4 weeks. Average across the United States, once every 4 weeks. 12 times a year. I once read about a barber who, after a week of standing on his feet and cutting people's hair and listening to the complaints of everybody, goes out to a psychiatric hospital and cuts hair for free. His friend is an accountant who manages great wealth every week. He goes out on the weekend and goes to the bars and picks up women and has a good time. One's attached to Jesus. One's not so much. One's all in with his life. The other, not quite there. Ministry, and all of us are engaged in ministry. All of us. Ministry shouldn't be another task that we have to do. Peter and James and John and the other disciples encountered someone in that very brief time when Jesus was taking a stroll out by the lake. They encountered someone when he met up with them, someone who moved them in the depths of their being. They knew it immediately. This is somebody. This is somebody I want to be like. This is somebody I want to emulate. asked them to believe. He just asked them to follow him. That was it. I was thinking about how we do that with our friends and neighbors who aren't engaged in churches. The old model was that you have to believe first, and then you commit, and then you learn about the church, an inquirer's class. And then if you pass all of those musters, you join the church. What if we simply did like Jesus did and say, follow me. Follow me to a place where there are others who are also broken, to a place where there are also folks who struggle, to a place where there are also folks who are dealing with age. Follow me to a place where ministry is illuminated by music that makes us joyful in the midst of that, all of that, that makes us feel comfortable in a place because a stranger speaks to you, to a place where courage abounds as we move out of our comfort zones into the world to address the issues that are around us. Follow me. Can we commit to that this year in the depths of our being? As we find ourselves on a seashore and a figure approaches us and says, follow me, can we do that? To join together in ministry and in worship and in mission and in study and in prayer and having fun even in the midst of that. Can we commit to that in 2026? It's right there on the front of your bulletin. Every Sunday. I hope you just don't gloss over it. Grounded in faith, growing to serve. That means something here in Seneca. Philosopher Blaise Pascal said, if you want to be a believer, just go and do the things that believers do. May it be so in your life in this very day. Having heard the word, let us stand and affirm that which we can believe using the historic